Imagine this, getting 30 days worth of work done in just 5 days. What would that mean for you? What could you achieve? How would people look at you differently? It sounds impossible, right? But this is way more realistic than you think. Hi, I'm Mark. My background is in neuroscience, and for the past 22 years, I've been obsessed with one question. How do we gain more from our brain? I've trained thousands of people on this, written books about it, and traveled the world to speak on this topic. After all those years, I've seen one thing again and again. The most successful, productive people master one skill: blocking distractions and putting themselves into flow. In other words, focus. And honestly, it makes total sense. Our effectiveness is basically time multiplied by focus. So, in this video, I'm going to share the 6 most important principles I've learned over the past 2 decades of researching focus. And at the end, I will walk you through a sample day routine you can copy and use to become unstoppable. Let's get into it. The first principle, and this is my all-time favorite, switch and route. Every time that you switch between a task, your brain is split in 2. Let's say you're working on an article, and during that article, you're in your flow, doing your thing, you're getting a text message. We tend to think, well, let me answer that text message straight away, because that's very convenient for the person who's sending you the text message. And by the way, it's only maybe requiring 20 seconds of your time to answering a text, so who cares? But here's the thing. The moment that we switch with our attention, our brain is split in 2. Part of our brain tries to answer that text message. Hey, let's meet at 7 to grab a drink or so. While the other part of your brain still needs to remember what you're working on in the first place. That means that you cannot use your full IQ power to process that information. And for a text, most likely that's fine, especially to a good friend. But the same thing happens when you're switching back to the original thing that you were working on. Part of your brain needs to find where was I, while the other part of your brain still needs to let go of that previous information. Attention residue, it's called. Your attention lingers to the previous information that you were working on. That means that during attention residue phase, your brain operates at a lower capacity. To put a number on it, the moment that you switch, your brain thinks at the capacity level of an 11-year-old. That means you're roughly 40% slower, making roughly 30% more mistakes, and you'll experience more stress. And here's the kicker. It takes about 23 minutes for your brain to recover from an interruption. So the attention residue phase duration is about 23 minutes. This has a huge effect on your productivity. So switch and you're out. The second principle is close the leaks. After 2 decades of studying focus, I came to the conclusion that there are only 4 reasons that we switch with our attention and lose our focus. I call these the concentration leaks. The first leak is actually boredom. So we tend to think, I'm distracted because there are too many interruptions, too many phone calls, too many chat messages, etc. But funny enough, we're getting easily distracted by understimulation. Something is too simple, it's too boring, or goes too slowly. So maybe you can relate to the following. So imagine you're having an old-fashioned phone call. And let's say the person on the other end of the line speaks really slowly. Ever had that situation? What happens to your attention? Well, most likely you will start wandering off, right? But let's say you're having a pen in your hand. What do you start doing? Well, most likely you make those funny drawings. The official name is doodling. Here's the cool thing. Those little drawings will enhance your focus with 29%. Why? Your brain operates roughly at 1400 words per minute. If someone speaks really slowly, you have a lot of capacity left over to be distracted by your own mind or the surroundings. If you do something simple next to the main task, in this case the phone call, you filling the void. And this is the first way to close the first leak of boredom. Same goes for reading. If you're reading a text and during reading you start wandering off, very cool and simple trick. Move your eyes a little bit faster across the lines and you will absorb the information better. For the simple reason, you're making the task of reading a little bit more intense and therefore you have little capacity left over to be distracted by your own mind or once again the surroundings. Make sense? The second concentration leak is too little fuel. Anytime we have a mental effort, there's a waste building up in our brain. We need to get rid of that waste in order to be maximum productive, because that waste slows down your brain performance. There's one part of your brain that's being really active role in getting rid of that waste. It's called the default mode network. You can see it as the gas station of your brain. It reunites your brain and fills up the chemicals again. But there's one criteria for that part of your brain to be switched on, and that is you cannot take in any new information. If you do, your brain is in work mode, not in recharge mode. But that means watching a YouTube video like this, hopefully you like it, but it requires energy for your brain and it's not recharging your brain. This is critically important if you want to be maximum productive. So a great way to recharge your brain, light physical exercises. A push-up, air squats, walking. That will definitely help you to be more productive. The third concentration leak, too many internal distractors. So you can turn off your phone, but if you don't know how to turn off your mind, you can be easily distracted. So a great way to get rid of all the internal distractors is simply write down all the things that you need to do. Offload your mind. David Allen has a beautiful quote, "Your mind is for having ideas, not holding them." And that's absolutely true. This does not only apply to tasks that you need to do, but moreover, more specifically, emotions. The worst place to worry is in your mind. The best place to worry is on paper. Offload your emotions. This is known as expressive writing. By doing so, you'll be less distracted by all the things that are on your plate. The fourth and final concentration leak is the external distractor, meaning your phone and your computer. If you want to be maximum productive during those 5 days, you need to turn it off. You need to let people know you're unavailable during those 5 days. Third principle, focus blocks and theme days. You can reduce task switching at different levels. The simplest way, work in focus blocks. 90 minutes, one single task, no multitasking. On top of that, I recommend theme days. Bundle similar tasks on the same day, like a writing day, a marketing day, or an admin day. The fewer switches, the more output. My theme days currently look like this. Monday, admin day. Tuesday, I usually give a keynote. Wednesday, recording YouTube videos. Thursday, usually a keynote again. Friday, recording podcasts. When I'm working on a new book or another big project, my theme days are usually different, more in hermit mode. Principle 4, heavy to light. Most of us have more mental energy in the morning, so do the heavy brain-intensive stuff first and save the lighter task for later. Resist the urge to clear small tasks first. It feels good, but you waste your best focus hours. Principle 5, separate the thinking from doing. Thinking about what you're going to do uses a different region of the brain than when you're actually doing the thing. That means if you still need to think about what you're going to do, you switch between different brain regions back and forward. And that is costing a lot of energy. So if you separate planning from execution, you will work smoother and faster. Principle 6, dopamine, your focus fuel. Dopamine is your drive. Low dopamine is low motivation, low output. To crush 30 days of work in 5, you need dopamine reserves. It's important to know what's depleting your dopamine and what builds it. Even a 30-second scroll lowers your dopamine baseline easily for 60 minutes. On the other hand, you build it up by doing hard things. Cold showers, tougher workouts, pushing yourself into discomfort. Practical tips: avoid sugar, skip the snacks and energy drinks, drink lots of water, move often throughout the day. These were the 6 principles to get 30 days of work done into 5. Now let me walk you through a daily simple schedule so you can put it all into action. The main goal in the morning is to build up your brain chemicals that you need and avoid things that deplete it. So avoid checking your phone. Even a quick check will deplete your dopamine. Avoid taking in coffee in the first 60 or 90 minutes after waking up. If you use coffee to wake up, you will interrupt the natural waking up process, resulting in a dip around 3 p.m. Take a cold shower, or make sure that at least the last minute of your shower is freezing cold. Not per se fun to do, but it's one of the best ways to increase your dopamine levels for at least 2 hours. Look in the direction of the sun for about, give or take, 10 minutes. And of course, be careful with your eyes. In addition, you can do some meditation, yoga, or sport if that suits you. Breakfast, if you follow an intermittent fasting schedule, then obviously skip it. Otherwise, choose for a light breakfast. On Monday, you start with a prep. This is very, very important. Start by choosing what you're going to work on in the next 5 days. This sounds ridiculously simple, and it is, but without a specific goal, it is quite hard for our brain to be focused. The trick is to be very specific. So in my case, I'm working on a new book, but that in itself is too vague. Better is, I'm gonna work on chapter 7, where I wanna combine research A and research B. Next, set up your workstation. Make sure it's clean and organized. Anything that's not related to your goals or something that could be a distraction has to go. Unplug your game console and make sure your desk is clean. Also, let others know that you're less available than normal. Turn off all your notifications. For your email, turn on your out of office reply. Tells others that you're in focus mode for the next 5 days. My suggestion is to only check your messages after 4 p.m. That's only for the next 5 days. In order to be maximum productive, you need to limit as many distractions as possible. In addition, limit the internal distractions as well, as mentioned before. A good way to do this is to do a brain dump. Write down anything that's still on your mind. The whole prep should take less than 60 minutes. After the prep, it's time to take your coffee. I usually take a double espresso. All right, 9 o'clock-ish. Next, start your deep work blocks. When I'm writing a new book, I usually tend to work in chunks of about 90 minutes. For all other type of tasks, I tend to work in focus blocks of about 60 minutes. After each deep work block, it is utterly important to recharge your brain in the correct manner. If you don't, you can't maintain your focus for the next focus blocks. I like to do some light physical exercise as mentioned before. I like to do some push-ups. Alternatively, you can go for a walk. Just test what works best for you. If you work deep work blocks for about 60 minutes, a 5 to 7 minute break is ideal. If you work for about 90 minutes of deep focus, your brain needs at least 20 minutes to recover. After your deep work blocks, it's around lunchtime, take a longer break. After repeating 2, maybe 3 focus blocks, it is wise to take a longer break of about 60 minutes. Again, without recharging our brain, we cannot be highly productive. Our brain simply needs it. During your longer break, you can take your lunch, obviously. And since we want to avoid an after lunch dip, I usually go for a light lunch during those weeks. And to recharge, it works wonders if you go for a longer walk of about 30 to 45 minutes, if that suits you. In nature would be awesome, but it's totally fine if you do it in the city. I live in Amsterdam, so most of the times I walk besides the canals here. After lunch, we continue the focus blocks. However, I recommend that you work on the more simpler elements of your to-do list or goals. So in my case, that's reading research papers or polishing text that I wrote earlier. I also tend to take slightly shorter focus blocks and slightly longer breaks between my focus blocks. In the afternoon, I recommend focus blocks of about 50 minutes and roughly 15-minute break. This ensures we get rid as much waste that we build up from the morning focus blocks. And again, not getting rid of waste in our brain is one of the main reasons we limit our capacity. So maybe you expect during those 5 days you worked insane hours. Well, in fact, that is a counterproductive approach. If you add up the productivity of a long day with the productivity of the next day, where not much gets done, you will see that the total actually is way lower than if you had just go home on time on both days. So stop at 4 p.m. I know it sounds counterintuitive, but it works. And if you haven't checked your messages during the day, this will be a great time to catch up on the things that you've missed. Take a maximum of about, 60 minutes or so. So now it should be around 5 p.m.-ish. Do social stuff, do a workout, take time to prepare a good meal, relax. At 7-ish, start intermittent dopamine fasting. One of the most important things that you can do to maintain a high level of productivity is to get a good night's sleep. Checking your social media right before bed will definitely interfere with this. So this is why I highly recommend intermittent dopamine fasting. It looks like this. 2 or maybe 3 hours before you go to bed, you avoid things that gives you fast dopamines, like social media, the news, swiping on Tinder, porn, etc. Watching Netflix or TV, fine. Reading a book, awesome. And charge your phone in the kitchen so you can check it before falling asleep. And maybe more importantly, you can check it first thing in the morning. If you use your phone as an alarm clock, buy an alarm clock. When you go to bed, make sure it's pitch black. I usually sleep with a sleep mask. The next days look pretty much the same. The only difference is that you can skip the prep phase and directly start with your deep work blocks at 8 AM. At Friday around 4 PM, you're done. Well done, you made it. You just pulled off a peak performance week. Awesome, congratulations. But just like athletes, you cannot do this all the time. Afterwards, you need to recover. Walk more, hang out with friends more, do nothing. In the Netherlands, we call that niksen. You can't keep pushing. You need to burn out and pay the price later. Without focus off, there is no focus on. I also recommend to do a short review. What went well during those 5 days? What are habits that you might incorporate in your normal work week? And more importantly, what distracted you during those 5 days? And how can you minimize it? All right, it's a wrap up. This is the 30 and 5 day method. It's not magic. It's using neuroscience to cut down distractions and putting you back into flow. If you commit to this, you get shocked by what you can get done. I hope you liked it. If you like and subscribe and see the other videos.